Okay, for class today, we are going to be talking about energy systems and weight management. And I just wanted to review a little bit with you with regards to anaerobic activity and aerobic activity. And so aerobic activity, we know, is consisting of long amounts of time where we're exercising. So most forms of aerobic activity include cycling, swimming, running, jogging, different fast forms of walking, basketball, soccer, again, things that are a long amount of time. And then anaerobic activity consists of strength training. So you're doing short bursts of energy lasting between anywhere from 10 seconds to a minute long. So with that being said, we have three basic energy systems. We have the PCR system, which if you're familiar with your fight or flight system, it's that short burst of energy that only lasts about 12 seconds. And what it does is it gets your body revved up to then go into the next system. And the next system is called your anaerobic system. And your anaerobic system, like I said, can go in short bursts. So if you had to run away from somebody, your PCR system would engage immediately. And what it is it's stored amounts of energy that you have in your body. So you have during your resting time, you've taken some of the nutrients that you've eaten and you've formed stores of energy called ATP. So ATP, and I can give you the wording for it, but it's adenosine triphosphate. So I know you're very excited about those words, but ATP is little molecules of energy that your body uses to create movement or within your organs. So let's go back to PCR. So that's all your stored ATP goes into that immediate transference of energy to do a short sprint to get away from somebody. Well, if that person is chasing you, then what your body actively does is it goes into the next phase, which is your anaerobic system. And it uses the fast glycolysis. So the glycolysis is where you've gained energy from the food that you've eaten, and it has been broken down into more types of energy. But as you're running for that minute of time, it's producing more energy as you go. So the anaerobic system only lasts for about a minute and a half. So if somebody is still continuing to chase you, your speed is going to now drop a little bit. So you can't consistently maintain that high speed. So what your body then goes into is it goes into the slow pace glycolysis, where you're going from a sprint to now into just running, but you're still going at a fast pace. You're just not going as your optimal amount of speed would allow you to. And so then that is your long-term amounts of running or endurance, that sort of thing. So your body enters those three phases. Now, when you're talking about food, so what food goes into those three phases? Well, like I said, the PCR system has your stored energy and only lasts for a short amount of time. So that can be anything from breaking down fat to carbs to protein. A lot of times PCR gravitates towards protein. Your metabolism will burn off protein and store it for energy first. And then it'll go into the carbohydrates, and then it'll go into fat. So protein only gives you a certain amount of molecules of ATP. So it gives you what it needs, but not enough for your body to sustain. And then you have your glycolysis stages. You've got your fast-paced glycolysis stage, and you've got your slow-paced glycolysis phase. Each of those phases will break down your fats and your carbohydrates. But even though a carbohydrate will give you a certain amount of ATP, fat will give you more ATP, but it takes ATP to create more energy. So let's just talk about your metabolism for a second. So we know that the metabolism in your body will break down protein first. Protein in the form of meat or beans. I know that we can glean protein from peanuts or from almonds, but again, there's a huge amount of fat associated with nuts, and so it'll take the protein out, but it does have to break down the nuts enough to be able to get the fat content as well. So usually when you're talking about exercising and what we need to eat for the next athletic performance or whatever, you're talking about nuts. It'll fill you up. It's a good filler, and it won't make you hungry, but it won't necessarily sustain you like a lot of people say it does. So anyway, so we got protein, and that's what your body will use, and it'll burn up real fast. And then you have, I don't know why I just wrote a 3. You can tell that I've had a long week. And then you have your carbs. This is the second thing that your body will break down. And what I mean by carbs is that it has an easier time breaking down complex carbs than it does the simple carbs to go into that nutrient energy phase. So people will say, well, that simple carb, it's one molecule, and yes, it's true. But what happens when you break that down so fast is that it goes straight into fat content. So all that sugar, so breads, pastries, other like donuts, those types of things that have the high sugar associated with the carbs, your body is going to store it rather than burn it. So let's just take the complex carb because it's got good nutrients, it's got fiber, it's got the things that you need to produce healthy energy instead of the sugar high. So we've got complex carbs. Okay. And then the third thing that your body will break down is fat. Fat, like I said, takes energy molecules, so ATP. It takes 2 of them in order to get 9 ATP. Now you're saying, okay, well, but 9 overcompensates the 2. Yes, it does, but if your body is having to give energy to make energy when you're in a high performance or high endurance situation, it's not the ultimate process that you want to gain that energy, because it takes time to gain energy because you're having to use energy to gain energy. There's a much more of a breakdown with fat, meaning that it takes a lot more stages to break it down into ATP, whereas carbohydrates, it takes a slower or a faster amount of a process to gain the carbs that you need to break it down into forms of energy. Okay, so so now we're talking about anaerobic and aerobic. Okay, so for aerobic, it's essential to gain carbs, the good types of fat, so almonds, coconut oil, that sort of, or avocados, coconut oil, that sort of thing. And we're only talking about a little bit of fat to sustain our aerobic activity. And then for that anaerobic activity, remember we're talking about short bursts of time, so it only lasts about a minute to a minute and a half. And what we use for that is we use protein and we use carbohydrates in order to have this exercise. So if you're going to high fit, fast paced strengthening, and sometimes weightlifters will do this, they'll lift a really heavy amount of weight, so almost 100% of their repetition max, to do only 3 reps because it's taking everything that they have. That's your PCR system, which is that other energy element of movement. So what does it take for this? Well, it takes a chemical called creatine that your body gets from glycolysis and from protein. And what creatine does is, again, it enhances your ability to move really fast for only 12 seconds. And so when you're doing strengthening to that PCR system, you're talking about very short bursts of sprints. You're talking about lifting optimal amount of weight for a short period of time and then a rest. You're talking about short bursts of energy, and so people will train towards that end. So they'll take the supplement called creatine, and maybe some of you guys have heard about that, to enhance their muscular system, because you're breaking down all your muscle to rebuild it at maybe a faster amount of pace. So we're going to talk about that a little bit further on, but this is just kind of an introduction about how our metabolism works. So then when we're thinking through about, okay, well, how do I eat for my weight management system, remember, if you're sitting for a long amount of the day and you're not exercising, then what should you be eating as a result? You should be eating low-fat elements, complex carbohydrates, and protein. Once you start eating high-fat content for like, let's just say you had ice cream every day, that isn't a good fat because it's got not only dairy, but it's got a high amount of sugar. If you ate that every day, you might see an increase in your weight. If you ate just simple carbs, so donuts and cake and pastries and that sort of thing, then what would happen with the result of that? Little Debbie's, those used to be my favorite as a kid. A result of that would be, again, a weight increase because you have a high amount of sugar, a low amount of carbohydrates. That sugar is going to go straight into stored fat. And then you have protein. And so let's discuss a little bit about animal protein. So the optimal amount of lean meat out there consists of chicken, fish like halibut or freshwater fish, and we also have deer meat that's lean, and then sometimes organic beef can be lean meat as well. But when we're going for maybe that weight management process, you're going to want to stay away from frozen hamburgers because that has high fat associated with the meat content. So if you did eat a hamburger, then it's suggested don't have a dessert, especially if you eat a hamburger with cheese on it. What does that result? That results in gaining all the fat content you need for the day, because you have the oils from the animal fat will turn into human fat, and then you also have that cheese content, so you've already met almost your daily intake of fat for the day. And then so no desserts for maybe that particular meal, and stick with fruits and vegetables as a result. You've already met your carbohydrate intake if you eat a hamburger. So what does that mean for the French fries? It doesn't look good. What I mean by that is if you consistently eat hamburgers, French fries, and Coke all the time, you will see an increase in your weight gain as a result, because those foods will immediately go into stored fat. So with our metabolism, we've talked about high metabolism versus low metabolism. And there are a lot of factors that go into having somebody who has a lower metabolism. A lot of us out there have a lower metabolism. What does that entail? Well, that means that when we have a lower metabolism, our ability to immediately absorb and burn proteins, carbs, and fats is slower. How do you get a lower metabolism? Well, if you have an autoimmune disease, if you have thyroid issues, and guys are rolling their eyes right now, well, I don't have a thyroid issue. You normally hear that with regards to females. That is true, but when guys get older, they actually have thyroid issues as a result. So maybe, store that fact in the back of your mind, because it is out there. So again, autoimmune diseases, and there's actually a lot of you guys in class that are dealing with different types of autoimmune diseases, and that will affect your metabolism. So how do you compensate for that? You have to eat strategically in order to compensate for that. And what I mean by that is look at your protein that you have and what you're eating, look at your carbs and what you're eating with that, and look at your fat content and see what you're eating with that. We can trick our systems into burning off more fat than carbs and proteins if we decide to eat a meal that's very low fat content, has a little bit of carbohydrates, and then has a lean meat content with it. So what's an example of that? An example would be stir fry. If you cook stir fry in coconut oil, then you would have that fat content, but it's a low fat, and you ate it with chicken, and you had the carbohydrates that consisted of carrots, zucchini, broccoli, and cabbage. That right there is a meal where your body is going to easily burn off the chicken, easily burn off the carbohydrates because they're complex, and then will immediately go into burning off that fat. And so what happens as a result of that is that you won't have a stored fat situation because your body will be able to burn that meal off very efficiently and effectively. Another way to increase some metabolism when you have an autoimmune disease is to be able to put forth about 20 to 30 minutes of physical activity a day. And that consists from a lot of variety of activities. We've already experienced and maybe experimented with several activities in the past couple of weeks and try to put ourselves out there. And so find an activity that you like and that you're able to do, and that will increase your metabolism. Another effective way to increase your metabolism is strength training, which can be different forms. It can be body resistance, such as Pilates or yoga. It can be resistance bands, or it could be weights, or different strategic elements of sprints and interval running. That's going to increase your strength. When your muscles get bigger, your metabolism means that you have to burn off more calories to meet your muscle amounts, your muscle gains that you have in your body. So it's said that when you strength train and you're in your resting period of that 48 hours, you're actually still burning off calories because your body needs to break down enough to rebuild those muscles that you've broken down, and that takes energy as a result. So strength training is great to rev up your metabolism. Another way to rev up your metabolism might be that you do a healthy, well-balanced diet. There's what's called the THM diet out there, and that has an effective, well-balanced, nutrient way of reversing your metabolism. And then the whole foods diet also has a way of reversing your metabolism as well. It still incorporates the nutrients that you have within your body. So just a short PowerPoint here, and something that we're trying to get into is understanding that with weight management, 1 pound of fat equals 3,500 calories. Let me just erase this and turn this on real quick. Go. Okay. So principles for lifetime weight and fat control. So 1 pound of fat is equal to 3,500 calories. 10%, only 10% of people who diet actually will lose weight, and they'll be consistent with that. And then only 1% of the 10 keep it off for good. So there are a lot of times when people will diet for a specific amount of time. They'll lose about 10 to 20 pounds. They'll look really good. Some people will even lose 50 pounds. And then after they reach their goal, they'll taper off. So they might eat more donuts or more sweets, or be a little bit more lenient on their ice cream intake. And then they'll also stop exercising as intense as they did. So as a result of that, then you slowly gain the weight back over a period of time. Usually that period of time can consist of 1 to 3 to 4 years, depending on how much tapering off you do and how slow you are at it. So that 3,500 calories equals 1 pound of fat. So if you decreased your caloric intake every day to meet that 3,500 calorie goal, then essentially, theoretically, you should be able to lose an average of 1 pound a week of fat. So when we're talking about dieting, we have different types of diets out there that are not nutrient based, and we have a lot of no fat diets. We have a lot of no carb diets out there, and what it does is it reverts your body into a survival mode where it is burning off the stored fat in your body, but it's also going, when I say survivor mode, I mean that your body is saying, okay, I need to burn off this fat in order for me to gain energy, but when I gain more fat, I'm going to store it. So if you are highly active right now, and you are eating a no-fat diet as a result, then what happens is that your body will have a tendency to get and store that fat later on. But if you're able to incorporate small amounts of fat in your diet per day, then your body won't have that situation, so you're not slowing your metabolism down as a result. So again, you want to find a diet that's well balanced in all areas: carbs, fats, and proteins. And when I say fat, I mean low fat. So those crash diets, especially those diets that are liquid based, that's not going to be effective, because you're not going to just continue to drink shakes 3 meals a day for the rest of your life. You can't do that. You can't sustain it. You might be able to sustain it and be disciplined at it for a time, but it's not going to last forever. So what you need to do is be able to, again, find a diet that's well balanced, that's practical, and that you can sustain for kind of a lifestyle. So women should eat at least 1,200 calories a day. That doesn't mean that you look on the back of a candy bar and see, oh, well, that's only 290 calories, so I could eat that in a day. And that doesn't also mean that we can go and eat cake and then not eat the rest of our meal because the cake was our caloric intake for the day. 1,200 calories for women and then 1,500 calories for men in a day. That means that you're eating good calories and effective calories. You can obviously splurge a little bit every now and again and have ice cream or have cake. And what a lot of people do, especially during the summertime, is that they'll concentrate more on the fruits because it's in season. And when we focus in on that, then you'll see a lot of people tend to lose weight during the summer because they are eating fruits. They have access to them for a cheaper price, and it's more effective that way with that natural fructose that you're absorbing rather than the high amounts of sugar that you gain from cake or ice cream. We're also more active naturally in the summer. Most of us want to be outdoors. Most of us have to be outdoors for some reason or another, whether it be mowing or weeding the garden or landscaping outside. Those are elements that keep an average person active during certain amounts of the week. And then you also have other outside activities that you naturally want to do because it's nice outside. So remember that when we get into that winter period and that early spring period, that's when people tend to gain weight. And so trying to find activities that are indoor that you want to do is essential for you to maintain your weight. So how do we stay motivated throughout the year? We always need to be thinking positively. If you don't see quick gains at first, if you're not feeling like, I'm not getting anywhere, 1 pound a week is not enough, remember this. 1 pound a week is enough because you just took one step to maintaining a healthy lifestyle. And so over the course of an 8-week period of time, you've just lost 8 pounds. That's huge. And we have to continue to think positively about that. Could it take about 2 years of time to get down to your goal weight? Yes, it could take that amount of time. And that's okay, because we need to understand that weight loss or maintaining your weight is not something that is an instant gratification. We have so much instant gratification around us that we don't understand that with bodily health comes patience. And so understanding that it's going to take a while, and then trying to find strategies to think positively throughout that course, and maintaining a lifestyle of health is what you really want to go after. And so using rewards such as, well, in 2 months time I'm going to lose 8 pounds, that might be enough to go down to a dress size. And so then that means I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna go buy a new shirt, or I'm gonna buy a new pair of shorts because I got down to that weight goal. Or if you have lost those 8 pounds, doing something that's really fun, that obviously doesn't cause you to gain any weight back as a result, but doing something that you enjoy, which might mean going to the movies, or going hiking, or doing something that you really enjoy. And it also could mean that if you are running and you've been running for a consistent amount of 8 weeks, what that means could be that you run in a 5K as a reward. Some people get highly motivated when they're able to participate in running activities such as that. And then we have 3 goals for healthy living that you want to write down. What are those 3 goals? What do you have in your life that's not healthy, and that we need to find and maybe think through and problem solve to where we can have better goals? And remember, we want to set realistic goals, not from May to August, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in that time. That's doable. Lots of people do it, but it does create high amounts of stress as a result, because you're actively going on the scale every day. You're trying to figure out if you can lose it and what other ways you can lose it, and your mind is constantly on that. Rather than set a goal of 20 pounds from May to August, set a goal of 15 or 12 pounds, and so that way you're able to attain that, and you can see that progress. And it might not be that immediate 2 pounds a week progress, but it's progress in and of itself, and it's not going to demotivate you. I would encourage you to again try and educate yourself with regards to calories. And we did that nutritional analysis because I want you to see how many calories are in different types of what's considered healthy foods. When we're on a diet, do we want to eat the Fit Crunch bar? Probably not, because it's so high in the caloric intake and so high in sugars. And so what is maybe a better resource would be Quest bars. Quest bars have between 2 grams of sugar to 5 grams of sugar. And if you're able to eat dairy, but not gluten, this is a really good protein bar to eat, because it has a high amount of protein bar. It's good for energy. It will sustain you. And because there's a low amount of sugar element in it, then you're able to maybe decrease your weight as a result. They have all kinds of types of flavors. Some people don't like them. Sometimes it takes gaining a taste for it, because it has an interesting texture to it for sure. And then we want to change those unhealthy behaviors. And what I mean by that is, don't eat while watching TV. That just results in a bad habit. Other unhealthy behaviors is binge watching 6 to 8 hours of TV. You don't want to do that either, because that's, again, excessively sitting for long amounts of time. That consistency with being on the computer or finding other forms of entertainment, rather than having just an hour of physical activity in your day or 30 minutes of physical activity a day, everybody can put forth at least 30 minutes of physical activity, and you're going to feel better as a result. For one of my master's projects, I did a study on the effects of Zumba. And my target was to have college women come in, and for 8 weeks of time, they were to do Zumba every day for 5 days a week. And so we would get up early in the mornings and we would do 30 minutes of Zumba. So not an hour of time, just 30 to 40 minutes. And how I assessed their progress was, the first thing was emotional. So I had an emotional questionnaire that they would fill out at the end. I also had calculated their resting heart rate, and then we recalculated that resting heart rate every week to see if there was progress. And there was progress as a result. Their emotional stability was much more high. They had high amounts of energy as a result of doing 30 minutes of Zumba. And within that Zumba class, we took beginner's level, and we went all the way up into maybe an intermediate level as a result. And so they were continuously testing their range of intensity intervals, and the result was a lower resting heart rate as a result. And so all of that to say is that that only lasted 30 minutes in a morning. And the thing that really impacts us is that we just don't feel like it. We just don't want to do it. But once we get started, once we put on our athletic shorts, once we put on our t-shirt, put on our tennis shoes, and we actually get out the door, that right there is the full battle for most of us. And once we participate in that activity, whatever it may be, the result is that we feel better afterwards, especially when we do it for a consistent amount of time. Okay, so step number 5, I kind of already talked about step number 4, but step number 5 is this: get support. One of the biggest things about having that Zumba class early in the morning is that there were 10 to 15 girls that were actively participating. Some of those girls didn't want to participate in the actual progressive program. They just wanted to come and to enjoy and to have fun. As a result, there was a higher attendance of students coming because they not only enjoyed the activity, but they also found friendships within that group. And there have been studies over and over again that when you participate in an activity that consists of a group and you are a social person or a moderately social person, the result is that you have a higher motivation to continue to keep going. And if it's that you don't want to be that social, or you feel like you can't really gain as much as you could if you were just by yourself, you can be by yourself, but maybe have an accountability partner. Maybe check in with somebody and say, hey, this is what I completed for this week, and I feel really good. Or, you know what, I had a couple bad days this week. Find somebody who can listen and can encourage you to continue on. And choose wisely. If you find somebody that's not very disciplined in their activities in and of themselves, they're probably not going to be able to help you as much as you need them to. So it might not be your best friend. It might be somebody at church that maybe you could go to as a result. So designing your own program, one of the most effective ways that I found is that if you get onto sites like MapMyFitness or MyFitnessPal.com, those types of sites that are able to calculate the food intake that you have, plus your energy intake, plus your water intake, and are able to make those calculations on the website, will actually help and motivate you to continue on and progress on. I actually have a student from last year's class who has continued with MyFitnessPal, and as a result, he's lost a bunch of weight over the course of the year because he kept track of his caloric intake and he kept track of his exercises. And so rather than getting a pen and paper and cataloging everything, use those sites. That's what they're there for. You can have them on your smartphone, and what is nice about it is that it's easy and it's effective. Another way that you can design your program is to find diets like THM, which is an acronym for Trim Healthy Mama, and what it is it's a bunch of recipes, but they also have their first book that consists of how to strategically figure out what types of meals and how much in portion you need to eat for the day. Lots of people have seen increased amounts of energy as a result, a drop in their weight, and that they're able to make and maintain a lifestyle of it rather than just doing it for a consecutive amount of time. The hard part of that is that there's a lot of baking involved, there's a lot of prep work involved. The other diet is maybe the paleo diet. This diet consists of a lot of good nutrients, gives you the moderate amount of fat, and is again another way for people to maintain that lifestyle. The whole foods diet again, but again that uses some organic foods, and if there are several of you out there that just can't afford that, try the other types of diets that have incorporated carbs, fats, and proteins. So some of the strategies, again, keep that food diary. Satisfy hunger by drinking water. Vegetables, fruits are also good ways to curb your hunger rather than getting out the bag of chips or the bag of popcorn. Another effective way that I've seen is that if you take, if you're tired of drinking water all the time and you need like some extra zest in it, take those infusion pitchers where you can put limes or lemons or something zesty like that, and then just sprinkle a little bit of Splenda in there. And what it actually does is it does curb your hunger. And so if you're one that naturally snacks at night while you're watching TV and you've decided to maybe step back from that, drink some water with lime or lemon in it, and you'll see a better result from that. Slow down when you eat. Drink water while you're eating your food rather than eat your food and then drink water. So that way you don't eat as much and you're able to have that effective portion control and not feel hungry afterwards. And then only eat when physically hungry. And this doesn't mean that you eat when you're bored. You're only eating when you feel like your stomach's growling or you actually feel those hunger pains, not when you think you're feeling them. And then plan your meals in advance. This is really effective because if we get to lunchtime and we don't know what we're eating, what is the result? Well, we naturally have a tendency to go out to McDonald's or go to a fast food restaurant and grab something real quick. Or we decide that we're just not going to eat that meal. And then our metabolism lowers and we get more hungrier and maybe even moody throughout the day. Hangry is a real thing. And then really reinforce those new habits by rewarding yourself. And we've kind of talked a little bit about rewards. Plan for the holidays and special occasions. Maybe limit your portions during that time. Maybe increase your activity with running and jogging so you can accommodate for the high caloric intake that you might be consuming over those holidays. Use smaller plates. This is one of those psychological things where if you use a smaller plate, your mind says, oh, okay, well this plate is full. That means I'm full. And then only eat at the table and keep the bad foods out of the house. And eat breakfast. Breakfast is huge because it revs up your metabolism at the start of the day. So on the flip side, what if you need to gain weight? Or what if you know of somebody who needs to gain weight? Within gaining weight, we want to be careful that we're gaining the proper amount of weight and how to do that effectively. And this is regarding consuming the calories that are maybe the complex carbohydrates as pasta, rice, bread, potatoes, and cereals. So again, you're not going to those high-fat elements of ice cream or cake or cupcakes. So strength training can help as well. Drinking protein shakes can help dramatically. Drinking Ensure shakes helps as well. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to gain weight in a healthy, moderate way. So we need to kind of assess a little bit and try and see what eating right for the next week looks like. And so if you were to establish a program where you're going to eat right, would that include macaroni and cheese? Would that include breadsticks? Would it include potato chips? Would it include desserts or chips and salsa? And what about if you were to turn 50? What is your metabolism going to be? Is it going to be high or is it going to be low? Most people, when they turn 50, it's a lower metabolism as a result. So as you grow older, you need to start decreasing those desserts, decreasing those high carb elements like macaroni and cheese and breadsticks. Those are things that we want. And we enjoy pasta, we enjoy bagels, we enjoy all of those different elements. But what does it look on the flip side? It means that we will gain weight if we continue to do and make those different types of decisions. So we're going to talk about our project a little bit, and this will be the last thing. So what I want you to do is I want you to read this assignment very, very carefully because it has a lot of directions in it. And a lot of students will miss these directions as a result, and they won't eat as effectively as they need to. So what we want to do is we want to write down a meal plan for 5 days. This meal plan needs to consist of fruits, vegetables, grains, and meat. Okay? If you want a protein shake at a point in the day, that's fine, but I need to know if there are the nutrients, the proper nutrients that's in that particular shake. This means that when you go out to eat, you're going to eat strategically, and there are guidelines for healthy nutrition, part 1 and part 2. I want you to look those over because those are the checklists of what you need to be eating if you do go out to eat. So what you're going to do is you're going to submit the 5-day meal plan and then include extra things that you might have eaten along the way. And so I want to see that written meal plan and then if you really did follow it or not. And again, I'm looking for the fact that you're going to be disciplined for 5 days in eating healthy and correctly, which some of you guys do already, and that's great. Just keep doing that. So again, we want to look for fruits, vegetables, grains, protein, and a little bit of dairy. So let's go over just kind of these guidelines for healthy nutrition. So these are the restaurants that you are allowed to eat over the course of the 5 days. But with that, there are things in those particular restaurants that are still unhealthy. So for instance, Subway we deem as healthy. The sandwich in and of itself is healthy, especially if you add all the elements of the vegetables in it. But are chips, are Doritos healthy? No, they're not. So make sure that you eat the sandwich but not the chips. Is soda healthy? No, it's not. Is unsweetened tea okay? Yes, it is. So we're also looking at those drinks as well and taking a good look. The unapproved restaurants, Burger King, McDonald's, Taco Bell, all the pizza places, IHOP, Wendy's, Arby's, Hardee's, Fazoli's, all these different types of fried places that aren't necessarily good as well. And then part 2 is kind of an example of what some of these foods look like. So good carbs, any vegetables, fruits, brown rice, whole wheat bread, quinoa, sweet potatoes, brown pasta, granola, corn and beans. Bad carbs would include breads, potatoes, white pasta, macaroni and cheese, and so forth. Sugar, so good sugar is fruits, vegetables, Truvia, Splenda, and stevia are okay. Bad sugar is ice cream, candy, cake, pastries, chocolate. Fats, good fat is avocado, coconut oil, olive oil. Fat-free or skim cheese, fat-free mayo, almond milk, soy milk, eggs, and nuts. Bad fat is butter, canola oil, large amounts of cheese, milk, and nuts. And remember that daily intake, we can have a cup of cheese or milk, so that's okay. But when we get excessive is what I'm concerned about. And then protein, we have lean meat, which is chicken, whitefish, deer meat, goat meat, sheep. You can also add beef in there as well. The fatty meat, you've got steak, hamburger, and pork. Again, those are okay as long as you're moderate in the carbs on the flip side. And then other good types of protein, you've got whey protein, protein bars, and almonds as well. So look over those. If you have any questions, please ask me, especially as you're developing your meal plan. Again, I want you to develop your meal plan before you eat it. So take the weekend and think through and discuss, okay, what are these different types of foods that I need to be eating and consuming, plan it out. Because if you're not willing to plan, then again, what does your lunch consist of? Is it going to consist of a fast food restaurant? What's your supper going to consist of? Those things we need to start just for 5 days. Plan it out. That's all I'm asking is 5 days. It's not too hard. If you are still living at home and your parents are making your foods, discuss with them about the assignment and see if you can come up with a good plan of action as a result. Again, if you have obstacles or questions, please email me so I can get back to you. Okay, that is it. And thanks so much for listening, and have a great rest of your week.